Welcome to Brilliant Minds Unlocked. So today we're tackling a story you probably think you know really well.
Oh, yeah. Which one is that?
The big one. Electric vehicles versus big oil. You know, the narrative that's been playing out for years now.
Ah, right. The clean, green EV revolution, supposedly putting the fossil fuel giants out of business. David and Goliath, Tech Edition.
Exactly. The idea that oil companies are, fighting this desperate battle, spending billions to try and stop electric cars.
Throwing everything they have at it to protect their turf. That's the common perception, definitely.
Well, we dove into the sources for this deep dive, expecting to find, the evidence of that war, that mortal combat.
Did the evidence stack up?
Actually, no. What we found points to something far more complex, and frankly, quite a bit more cynical.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Cynical how?
The core conclusion that kept emerging from the research is this. The whole conflict might be, largely an illusion.
An illusion, meaning...
Big oil isn't desperately trying to kill EVs. Quite the opposite, it seems. The research suggests they're actively, if quietly, working to make sure EVs succeed.
Succeed? That sounds completely counterintuitive. Why would they want their main competitor to win?
But here's the twist. They want them to succeed, but only. Only entirely on their terms.
Okay, so this isn't about losing the war, it's about co-opting the victory. Like the ultimate corporate hijacking.
That's exactly the picture the sources paint. We're looking at analyses that treat these oil titans not as, dinosaurs waiting for extinction,
right,
but as master architects of this new electric world, planning to own the very future that was meant to destroy them.
It's a pretty profound and maybe, disturbing strategic shift, something people really need to grasp.
Definitely. So let's unpack how they got here. It starts with the threat they faced, right? For basically a century, the big fear was peak supply.
Yeah, the Eddy would just run out of oil.
Yeah.
That scarcity drove prices, investment, the whole business model, really.
But the research we looked at says that whole calculation flipped sometime in the early 2000s.
It really did. And what's fascinating is they kind of solved their own problem too well.
How so?
With things like the shale revolution, new extraction tech. Suddenly, the worry wasn't about supply running out. It vanished.
Okay.
But that created a much, much scarier problem for them.
Peak demand.
Peak demand, meaning the world just stops wanting oil.
Exactly. Partly because there was so much of it pushing prices down, but also, crucially, because climate science went mainstream. People started looking for alternatives. They saw the writing on the wall for the internal combustion engine as the primary profit driver.
Right. So here's where the strategy kicks in. You're a massive global corporation. Your entire world is threatened by this inevitable shift. What do?
You don't waste resources fighting the inevitable tide. That's usually a losing game long term.
Instead,
you get ahead of it. You hijack the revolution, basically. You steer it from the inside, control the pace.
And our sources actually describe this using a pretty interesting framework, almost like the Hegelian dialectic, the problem-reaction-solution gambit. Precisely. It's classic strategic maneuvering. The problem was clear. Oil's environmental cost, the geopolitical baggage, it became undeniable.
Leading to the reaction.
Which was massive public and political pressure, demands for a clean electric future, mandates, subsidies, the whole push.
And then comes big oil's sophisticated solution.
Right, not fighting the transition head on, but shaping it, pushing for a rapid, state-backed shift that looks green, but is actually designed to channel profits right back to them, the incumbents. It's about maintaining control, just changing the product line.
So does this mean were oil lobbyists sometimes supporting things like grid modernization or EV mandates behind the scenes?
The analysis suggests exactly that in some cases. They weren't just fighting defensive actions against climate laws. Sometimes they were strategically supporting the very changes that would build their next market.
But wait, surely that costs them now? Supporting green initiatives while their main profit is still oil? That feels like a loss leader, no?
It's a long game. A strategic trade-off. They're betting that stable, predictable, long-term utility profits, big electricity generation, will outweigh the volatile, risky oil market profits in the end.
And pushing for this transition forces massive public spending on infrastructure.
Infrastructure that relies heavily on their other major asset, natural gas, for power generation. So in a way, they're using public demand for green energy to get governments to subsidize the build-out of their new natural gas-powered empire.
Okay, that makes a disturbing amount of sense. Which brings us right to the next piece. The feeling of freedom versus the reality.
Yeah, the EV driver plugs in at home, feels great about ditching the gas station.
Feels independent, right? Unshackled from oil prices. But if big oil is steering this, where's that electricity actually coming from?
And that's the rub. The kilowatt really is the new barrel. And guess who's supplying it?
The same players, just through a different system.
Pretty much. Look at the U.S. grid. As of 2023, the data shows nearly 60% of electricity still comes from fossil fuels. Coal, yes, but increasingly natural gas.
And the biggest players in natural gas production, trading, often linked to the power plants themselves.
It's the names you expect. ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, BP. They're shifting focus, not disappearing.
So they're swapping one business for another.
Exactly. They're trading the messy, volatile, retail-facing business of gasoline. Think thousands of individual gas stations, price wars.
Right.
For the much cleaner, more centralized, utility-scale business of generating electricity, primarily from gas.
It's less a simple pivot, more like a strategic consolidation, moving to a market they can control more easily.
That's a good way to put it. Why is the utility model better for them? Stability. Control.
Explain that.
Selling gasoline means dealing with wild price swings, global politics affecting the pump overnight, intense retail competition. The utility model often involves guaranteed rates of return approved by regulators. It's frequently an oligopoly, if not a monopoly in some areas.
Much easier to manage profits from a few thousand power plants than 100,000 gas stations.
Far easier. More predictable revenue streams. Almost guaranteed profits
Yeah.
in many cases. It's just a fundamentally more stable, controllable business.
And circling back, who paid to build the foundations for this new, stable business?
Well, that's where the public investment comes in, doesn't it? The sources really highlight this. Billions upon billions in taxpayer money.
For EV purchase subsidies, charging infrastructure, battery research.
Exactly. This isn't a loss for big oil, according to this analysis. It's a massive public investment that they actively lobbied for, secured a seat at the table for, and are now perfectly positioned to capitalize on.
So they let the tech startups take all the early risks.
Yeah, let them burn through venture capital, figure out the tech, build initial consumer demand.
And now, with their huge capital reserves and market know-how, big oil steps in to dominate the mature market.
Precisely. It's a classic incumbent strategy applied to the energy transition.
Okay, so they're controlling the power generation. But there's another layer, isn't there? The actual stuff that makes EVs work.
The new bottleneck. Yes. We swapped oil scarcity for mineral scarcity.
Lithium, cobalt, nickel, all those critical minerals needed for batteries. This is where the theory really gets sharp teeth, right? Because who knows more about global resource extraction than big oil?
Exactly. This is crucial. Don't think of them as starting from scratch here. They have literally a century of experience in this game.
Mastering complex global logistics.
Figuring out how to extract resources from deep underground or politically tricky places.
Like cobalt from the DRC, lithium from South America, places where they already have infrastructure, political connections, operational know-how.
They have the deep pockets, the geopolitical leverage, the risk management skills. Frankly, they're better equipped to handle the messy, dirty side of the new resource rush than almost anyone else, certainly better than small startups.
So the research suggests they aren't just watching the scramble for these minerals.
No, they're actively in it. Funding projects, setting up joint ventures, sometimes using shell companies, positioning themselves to secure and dominate these new mineral supply chains.
Just like they dominated oil supply chains.
It's the same playbook, different resource. And the ultimate goal is control, right? Control the mineral supply. You influence the price of batteries. You create bottlenecks. You manage scarcity.
And all the negative press around mining, the blood batteries, the environmental damage, that actually helps them.
Perversely, yes, according to this view. It reinforces the narrative that this is complex, dirty, difficult work that needs responsible adults, i.e. them, to manage it properly.
Which justifies their control and maybe even slows down truly disruptive, open-source battery innovations that might emerge outside their sphere.
Exactly. The goal is clear. Green energy needs to be a commodity, a controlled resource, just like oil was. The fuel changes, but the structure of control aims to stay the same.
Which leads us to the public face of all this, the PR transformation, that wolf in green clothing.
Oh, yes. The brilliant piece of theater, as some internal analyses apparently call it. We all remember BP becoming beyond petroleum, even while drilling more than ever.
But today's greenwashing it's on another level, isn't it?
Exponentially larger and more sophisticated, and it serves two absolutely vital strategic functions for them.
Okay, what's first?
Securing their social license to operate. It's incredibly hard for activists or regulators to effectively attack a company that's publicly championing green goals, right?
Right. It disarms critics.
Totally. It lets them keep drilling, keep profiting from the old business, while they issue glossy press releases about their investments in EV charging networks or funding carbon capture research. They get to look like part of the solution.
Controlling the narrative while protecting the cash cow? Clever. And the second purpose?
Co-opting the standards of the transition by positioning themselves as essential partners in building the new energy infrastructure.
They make sure it gets built in a way that benefits them.
Precisely. To ensure the infrastructure, the regulations, the standards all favor their preferred solutions. Think large-scale centralized systems.
Like massive hydrogen hubs, probably powered by their natural gas.
Or complex, expensive carbon capture and storage projects tacked onto existing fossil fuel plants, extending their life.
Rather than, say, truly disruptive decentralized options.
Exactly. Things like community-owned solar, local microgrids, maybe advanced geothermal, things that don't rely on their centralized control and large-scale assets. They're building the new system in their own image. Centralized, controllable, profitable for them.
Okay, so if we run with this premise, that big oil isn't fighting the EV transition but is secretly, or not so secretly, steering it, then who is putting the brakes on? Who represents the actual resistance?
Well, the sources point to a couple of groups who, perhaps unintentionally, serve big oil's purpose by slowing things down just enough.
Who are they?
First, perhaps surprisingly, the traditional legacy auto industry.
The car companies themselves. Why?
Think about it. They have billions, maybe trillions collectively sunk into internal combustion engine factories, supply chains, expertise. They're genuinely reluctant participants in many cases.
So they're lobbying efforts, pushing back against strict EV mandates, asking for slower timelines.
That actually helps big oil. It provides a more manageable, controlled pace for the transition. It prevents market chaos and gives the oil giants the time they need to build out their new energy empire without being overwhelmed.
Okay, that makes sense. Legacy auto acts as an unintentional speed bump. Who else?
The other force is, well, grassroots populism. The backlash you sometimes see.
Fueled by?
Often, unfortunately, by misinformation. Ideas that EVs are just toys for the rich, fears about batteries catching fire, worries about the grid collapsing, that kind of thing.
And this political friction, this skepticism, how does that help big oil?
It creates noise. It creates political headwinds. It slows down mandates and public acceptance just enough. Again, it helps ensure the transition happens at a pace the incumbents can manage and ultimately dominate.
So big oil can sit back, let these other groups be the public face of resistance or skepticism.
While they quietly continue building their control over the new electric and mineral infrastructure, it's strategically useful friction for them.
Let's fast forward to the really modern twist in all this. The final layer of control. Data.
Ah, yes. This is critical. An electric vehicle isn't just a car anymore, is it?
It's a rolling computer, constantly connected, constantly generating data.
And this is where controlling the charging infrastructure becomes incredibly powerful. It's not just about selling electricity.
It's about controlling the digital connection point.
Exactly. That gives them access to an absolute goldmine of data they never had from a simple gas pump transaction.
What kind of data are we talking about?
Everything. Location tracking, obviously, but also driving patterns, charging habits, when and where you charge, how much energy you use, route efficiency data, battery health diagnostics, you name it.
So the old measure was miles per gallon. The new one might be terabytes per month.
You could almost think of it that way, yeah. And this behavioral data is vastly more valuable than just knowing someone bought gas.
How do they monetize it? What's the plan there?
Oh, the possibilities are huge. Selling aggregated, anonymized data streams to advertisers, obviously, to insurance companies for incredibly detailed risk modeling, urban planners, maybe even governments for tracking congestion or down the line compliance monitoring.
It's a recurring high-margin revenue stream that gasoline just couldn't offer.
Absolutely. And we should also just briefly touch on the geopolitical angle here, too. It's not just Western oil majors adapting.
Yeah, oil-rich nations.
Yeah, places like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, they see the writing on the wall, too. They're investing heavily in renewables, in futuristic tech cities, in diversifying their economies, ensuring their power structures and influence remain intact through this global energy shift. They're playing the same long game.
Which brings us, I guess, to the big controversial punchline of this whole analysis.
Look for it.
Trying to completely kill the EV market? Impractical, maybe even impossible now, and ultimately probably not even the most profitable path.
Right.
The smarter play, the one that evidence suggests they're making, is infiltration, steering, control.
So the war we thought we were watching,
Might have been, in large part, theater. Maybe even useful theater to make EVs seem edgy, desirable, push the tech into the mainstream,
creating the very market they then plan to take over?
allowing the incumbents to swoop in and profit from both the energy sales and this incredibly valuable new data stream.
So let's bring it home. What does this actually mean for you, the listener, the person maybe thinking about buying an EV or who already has one?
The implication is, well, it's pretty profound, isn't it?
It is. Switching to an EV. It might not mean you're cutting ties with big oil at all.
They could just become your new electricity supplier, operating through the utility company.
And increasingly, perhaps, the gatekeeper of your mobility data, too. The underlying corporate power structure. It might not be changing as much as we think, just the fuel source.
That feeling of freedom, of independence, could it eventually just become another subscription service? Subject to the same kinds of monopolies and controls we've seen with fossil fuels?
That's the potential endgame this analysis points towards.
So, the final irony here is just striking. The electric car wasn't the killer of big oil, after all.
According to this view, no. It's the phoenix, the thing that allows their business model to rise again, transformed for a new era, offering centralized control, stable profits, and that precious data stream.
The plug is just a pump in disguise.
And the same hands are aiming to stay firmly on the valve, controlling the flow of electrons, money, and information.
Wow, okay. So let's leave our listeners with something to chew on, a final thought based on all this.
Right. If this trajectory holds true, if the future of energy is electric, but the control systems remain centralized and become heavily data-driven,
Which seems to be the goal.
then how might that centralized control be exercised differently than before? Think about a future crisis or new regulations. Could that control be used to, say, limit travel, monitor compliance, in ways that were simply impossible with the old decentralized gas station model?
That's a chilling thought.
It raises a critical question for you, listening now. What kinds of truly decentralized energy solutions could actually disrupt this new emerging paradigm? Things like genuine community solar, local microgrids, maybe other technologies we haven't scaled yet. Can those gain traction before this new centralized system gets locked in?
That really is the challenge ahead.
It is.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.